Good afternoon, good day, everyone. I am D. Yvonne Rivers, the host of Birth Moms Real Talk. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I don't know where you are, but it's cold here, okay? It is cold here, but we're inside. We got warm hearts, warm minds, and all of that. So we're here for Birth Moms Real Talk, a place of grace. And the topic today is growing or getting closer. And we're going to invite all of you who are tuning in to sort of put your comments in, see what questions you want to ask, and so forth. This is your platform. This is your place for you to ask the questions or make a point or make comments. Whether you're a birth mom, whether you're an adopted mom or dad, or actually whether you're an adoptee. It's so amazing. I've got my friend Kitty here. I'm calling her my co-host because she's all here with me. But we're going to talk about the different perspectives from all the different triad coming in from reunion and so forth. So just in a minute that we're going to talk about. So I've gotten some people chiming in, Madison and what. So I invited all the ladies who've done a podcast. So they may pop in. They're from all over the country. Actually, someone from Alaska. I think I just saw something from her. So I'm not even going to ask her what the temperature is in Alaska versus here today in Washington, and Kitty is in New York. So Kitty, welcome today. You want to give some opening words to say to the people out there?
Well, I am so glad to be here, and I really appreciate you opening the space to have me be a repeat person because
A regular.
um, because what I find is that we have started on this journey, and it is fruitful and it's growing, and I want to be a part of it. So I'm glad to be here today.
Good. Absolutely. Now, the podcast is up now, that launched yesterday, is Autumn. I didn't know. Now, if you haven't listened to it, you need to listen to it. And be prepared to drop your mouth. When I say open your mouth when you hear the true story. And just as Kitty said, it's so important to have a platform to tell your truth. Not only to tell your truth, but really for you to share. And I heard, now I did another podcast this week, and the guest said, it's good to get this off my chest because some it's the first time they've shared or shared in a perspective that really others can know. Because if your family knows and no one else outside the family, or maybe they'll get the full picture. When I say the full picture, it could have been the whispers many years ago if it was closed, or even for open. Does everybody really know? And if they know something, what do they know? And actually, what are they willing to talk to you about? And Kitty, we want to talk about this too, for as in if there's a reunion or if there isn't a reunion, because we got the other side. Let's just face it. Not everyone has a reunion. Not every birth mom have met their child. Not every child has met their mom and or dad or anyone from the natural or first family. So those are always insights we want to talk about. So I want to ask the question, and if any of the other moms pop in who have done the podcast or anybody else, the question is, how has sharing your story maybe brought you closer to your child? That's the prevailing question we want to ask now. And that's the thing about it, is that whether it's brought you closer or not, or what has it done for you? Because as I say, maybe some people knew part of the story, maybe they knew of it, meaning people who had talked about it, but they didn't know the whole story with that. So Kitty, won't you share? You did the podcast. You were my first guest. You were my first guest. You were with me. We were originating this, and I always talk about with Damon that it was October 29th, 2020. I'm getting into 2021. So it was 6 months for us to put this together. And we came on live with our first episode on June 26th. So we are celebrating actually just 7 months. Kitty, it seems like much longer than 7 months we've been doing this. But we've got 20 episodes that we've done. We're in season 2 now. So share now. I think we've got Candace coming in. So why don't you share, Kitty, about since doing your podcast? How has it been? What have you learned? Are you coming any closer to anyone? Candace, I see you up in the studio, not showing your picture, but if can you hear us, you can just listen in and comment. Katie, go ahead.
So I think that there's a little bit of a backstory the before I did my podcast.
Okay.
So my growth actually started when a friend offered to do a search for me. And
Okay.
that is when I had to realize, whoa, there was something like earth shaking that happened to me many years ago that I never spoke about it from the heart. I always called it like the ace in my back pocket. So if
Okay.
somebody I knew was, struggling with a pregnancy that they weren't sure what they were going to do with, I would talk about, what does adoption mean to you? And it would be all from the head. It wouldn't be from like what happened to me leading up to me having
Talk more
two.
about, you said it was from the head. So in other words, were you in the same reality when you were asking about others and what they're going to do? You didn't think in terms of what you had done?
I did, but I didn't ever visit it for myself. Like say if I was sharing with somebody and they were to say, "Wow, that must have been so hard. What was it like coming home from the hospital without a baby that you carried for 9 months?" If they said that to me, I would have to like soul search to determine what that was. But
Wow.
the conversations I had with these moms to be were all very head educational, like this is a possibility. And a lot of it was questions that I would ask them, like, are you ready for it? So they never asked me the questions. And
Okay.
that kept me in a safe place.
Okay. Until when did you come out of your safe place?
Yeah. So my friend is like, what? You had a baby? Like 30 years ago? Do you want to find him? And I'm like, That's when I had to face the fact that I had a traumatic experience that I tucked away. So my sort of growing was when I gave her permission to post an electronic um, poster saying, "Anybody know this
This per-
2-year-old baby from back when?"
okay. Okay. And so that was the start of it. So you had been through that. I'm getting a little echo. Let me see if I can adjust something here. So that was the start of it. So when you did your podcast, um, after saying that, because that really put you out public, we're on blast, we're around the world, we're on all podcast platforms, and people are still listening to the episodes. And I think, Kitty, maybe I told you the other day in the village that it was like close to 400 downloads, I think, of your episodes. So people are still listening. So just because you hear a podcast came on last June or July or whatever, people are still listening. So people from around the world who don't even know you know your story. So after you sharing in this period of time, which has been maybe 6 months, 7 months,
Mhm.
how has you transferred or translated into whether people asked you, "Oh, you shared your story," or "I heard your podcast"? That's what I don't say what gets me, but sometimes I'll hear, "Wow, I didn't know Yvonne." Wow, I get a lot of wows. It's like, wow, and it's sometimes a situation they don't know what to say, and almost like to help them figure out what they need to say or what they feel like will help me. So, what has been that process or that time with you?
I have not had anybody reach out, contact
Oh,
me. I I think that what's really been something that maybe has been refining me
uh-huh.
is being able to use my voice to tell my truth
Okay.
to my current support groups in my life. Like,
Okay.
you have, different community groups that you're involved in, and so many times I like to present like I'm strong and I'm resilient and I'm happy and we're all having fun, and that people pleasing mentality is really not a benefit when you want to be genuine and
Mm-hmm.
authentic.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much where I'm growing now,
Okay.
is to be able to say what I need to say, even if the audience is not going to be in agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. So you find yourself, I say, shifting or coming in and being more genuine with what your thoughts are and your expressions are, whether
Mhm.
other people agree with it or not.
Yeah.
Okay. That takes boldness,
Yeah, that's scary.
courage. I know. I know. It's almost like a lot of times of I see jumping off a cliff, but it's it's a ledge up under there, and you're gonna be okay. And I think that's for me was when I remember saying to Damon, uh, yes, there needs to be something for birth moms, and I'm the one. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna do it, and it's like no holds barred, complete transparency, complete truth, and being able to say something, stand behind it, and not dare you, but it's like, this is my story. So I will not back off of it, and I will not apologize for me sharing it. And quite frankly, I can say openly that in some family situations, it wasn't accepted wholeheartedly. It's like, what are you doing? I'm telling my truth. And that doesn't
Yeah.
change. That doesn't change. So I was convinced and knew that I was coming out to do this no matter what. And I say this, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, that the only concern, shouldn't say concerns, but only people that I was wanted to make sure it was okay with was my son. I let him know I'm doing this. And it was like, own your truth, and I'm proud of you for you coming out there and doing that. That was my only thing. Once that go ahead there, I'm good. I'm good with anything there. Good with anything. Now we had, and I want to encourage. I think I've got up here too, that we are reading or about to start reading the Primal Womb with the Birth Moms Real Talk Village. Of course, the author is Nancy Verrier. And actually, I had an opportunity of meeting her a couple of years in 2019 when we could travel. and and hopefully they send out, well, actually we'll send out an invitation to her to maybe join us in one of those discussions. So if you're not a member of the Birth Moms Real Talk Village, we meet once a month. We had a Zoom last week. It was awesome for us in discussion, and this is like a private, so I know everyone's not open to do a podcast and talk private on Facebook Live or whatever, but this is like a private group that you really can share with other moms with that. And so, addressing for his primal womb, we actually are starting to read chapter 1 and chapter 2. And it really talks about, in the book, in case you don't know, is this book here. And just part of, for us growing closer, is that something that came out in the session was one mom had said that since her podcast, and she had a relationship, it sort of ties into what you just said, Kitty. She had a relationship with her daughter, were in reunion for a number of years, and she said she's found that her relationship with her daughter is much closer. And she attributed to the fact that she had been completely transparent, and maybe she felt like that she wasn't there before. So relates back to what you may say, Kitty. Is like, until we have that taking off everything and getting naked with our feelings, with what we're doing and sharing, so they can know that you come from the truth side of it. That's when true intimacy can really happen. Meaning that person can recognize you, respect you, and have a conversation. But in light of, for that's why I was talking about for and getting closer, because that's a process that you have to work on. It's not necessarily easy, and you have to really step on the ledge to start conversations. Now, part 1 or chapter 1, it talks about adoption as an experience. And then chapter 2 is connection with birth mom and child. Now, That's a whole bundle in itself. Everyone is different. The connection you will have with your child will be different than everyone else. But it's that connection that we're living for, and we'll have it in different phases. And we have to think in terms of what will allow us to grow our relationship. So is that a thought process for you, Kitty, of how you can come become closer with your son and build that relationships, and what steps or tips or whatever that maybe you've tried? Doesn't everything is not the same for everyone. So we have to really look and see what works with that. That's the beauty of having the support in this platform, because we want to hear from you. I see we have some people there on Facebook, and I think for StreamYard. So if you got a comment, you got a question or whatever, please post it in the comments and we'll cover that. So, Kitty, what are some steps you've taken? What's your process of figuring out, okay, what is the next step? Because I always say there's no playbook with this. We have no one who can give you A, B, C, D, one, two, three.
Yeah. The first time I had been on reunion with my birth son, I remember we met at a mall, and we went into a restaurant and we sat and talked, and I had a hard time being able, like, he was asking me questions about myself, and as I was answering, I was thinking, my answers may affect how he feels about me. So if I answer like, yeah, life is good, then he would feel like, well, what
Yeah.
about me? Don't you
Uh-huh.
have that missing piece? Hasn't that? But then if I went to the place of, oh, I missed you, then is that a heavy thing for him to hold, because he has no ability to be able to speak back to that because it was my choice.
Right. Right.
So I think about that, but then to jump forward to recent interactions with him, he has, spent up to a month staying with us during a summer, and we have gone on vacations, and he's come for holidays, and I've gone to his place. He's a few hours away. So what we have found now is that as we step into each other's lives, we sort of get a bigger picture. So it's not just the person's words and responses to you. It's like, oh, so there are four children that you and your husband had after me. Look at the way they were raised. Would that have
Uh-huh.
been me?
Right.
And if it was, would things be different? And this is where it gets really hard, because he did not have an easy life. His
Mm-hmm.
placement was not what I had hoped for.
Right, right. Well, and that's the what ifs. What if this? What if that? A lot of times people use or the terminology of, well, not necessarily a better life. Adoption doesn't necessarily bring a better life, but it does bring a different one. And you have to look at that and really be aware of not necessarily what we're saying, but the whole perspective, as you say, is that you went on and had four other children after him. What would have been like if all of you were together the whole time, and he would have grown up with his siblings? I mean, there's always a lot of questions, always a lot of situations with that. And we have to just be aware of that and then think in terms of, and I always speak for myself, and let me make the disclaimer again, not a psychologist, therapist, or whatever. I'm just talking about my own peer experience with it. And I always look at, and I use a terminology, whether people agree or not, it's not about me. It really isn't about me. It's about what experience and what steps that my son and I can grow together. And I read a lot. I was reading something just past week and was talking about we're the parents, no matter whether our kids are 50 or 60. We're the parents. And this is me. I look at the fact that I am the one who am going to still be there no matter what. no matter what. Wasn't able to be there before. This is me talking. Was not able to be there before, but I am here. I've said that. I stand behind that. And to me, it's for me and putting that best, not only picture, but steps before that possibly will work. I can't press anymore for him to do anything that he may be not ready for and so forth. That's the same with all of us, because I hear a lot of times, sometimes in support groups, well, why doesn't my child want to meet me? Or why can't this and why can't that? And they're working themselves up. And I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating when we've got a perception or we got an expectation. And because that's what it comes down to. When our expectations are not met, that brings on frustration. It does. And sometimes, so many times, you get stuck in that frustration and thinking, okay, I'm right here and it's not working. Well, what is working? And that's why I say, for us in growing or getting closer together, what can you learn about your child or yourself that will allow you to know yourself better or to know your child better? Those are some different things. And sometimes, a lot of times, it comes back to you doing your own perspective, introspective, and doing your own work. Because I always will say, until we do our work, we really don't know what's going on. We really don't. Really don't. And you work in the industry, Kitty. So, and I think on maybe different aspect, what have you seen that moms, whether adoptive or birth, because nature versus nurture, all that is involved. So, regarding the moms that you work with, what are some steps you see that how they can? I use the word breakthrough or understand the different perspectives, because I think you had opportunity of you to referring one of your some adoptive mom was on one of our Facebook lives, and she then got, I don't know was that the first time or not, she got the perspective because it was adoptees on there and they were birth moms. Sometimes that's the first time that you're able to talk to the other people in the triad, and that's amazing.
Yeah. I think that when you keep your scope of understanding or communication with others, when you keep that so tight, there is not much wiggle room for another reality.
Mm-hmm.
So as if there is, so the dance between an adoptive mom and a birth mom is so important. And if the worst case scenario is actually when there's the dance floor and one sits on one side and one sits on the other, and they both entertain their own ideas that may not
Yeah.
even be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have a place like this where you have an adoptive mom saying, what should I do with the knowledge that I have of birth mom, birth dad for my children, my young children?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how great to be able to say that amongst birth moms.
Right.
So they can say, well, if it was me, and this is very real to me because it's happened,
Mm-hmm.
um, I would feel like this, or how about considering this? So, therefore, the adoptive mom, this little one seed of information that she's sat and, like, I call it like a deceptive Klingon, like when she hears other people, that creates that expansion of like, wow, I've got
Mm-hmm.
more here that I can mull over in my mind and
Mm-hmm.
decide what may be not a negative, but maybe a
Right.
positive.
Yeah.
So maybe the time element is going to be a positive, especially when you're dealing with young children who are
Yeah.
adoptees.
Absolutely. I think I put something out, I don't know, to the village, and maybe you recall getting this, Kitty. It was an article about attachment, and it was relating to adoptive parents and attachment, and talking about on how or why or whatever that you may not be bonding or getting connected to the adoptive child. Well, I found it quite eye-opening that birth moms were not even mentioned. So
Mm,
because at what you just said, it takes all perspectives. it takes all perspective, because when you look at they were talking about, for is I don't know what stage, whether they just had adopted or whatever, their child, we go back to this same thing. If you in a closed adoption or even in an open adoption, how are you going to build that relationship with a child that you may be seeing twice a year on their birthday and whatever? Do they even know you, their mom? How can they relate to your mom? All of that. Or if it's been in a close relationship, you meet something, and I use the word intimate stranger. You meet someone who's part of you. They don't know you. You don't know them. You basically are strangers, but it's building that relationship. What kind of attachment, or how can you learn the best way that they can feel comfortable? A lot of times, it's situations. When I say situations that you may get in first in a reunion, and I think it's like, and I speak about my own, it's like, I want to know him. I want to know what he's been through, what kind of things he like, and whatever. And that's building communication and conversations and asking those questions. Because if you're going back and forth, or I should say back and forth, you're not really going back and forth. You're just saying, okay, well, I had a meeting with my son, or I talked to my son, or I talked to my daughter, and I talked to my children, and whatever. Well, what are you talking about? Are they getting to know you? It takes time. It's a process, but are you inch by inch growing towards it? We can't set a time limit or timetable on it, but are you at least see it growing? And if it's not, then asking, how can this? And I'm that person is like, what do you need and how can we? What do you need and how can we? Those are questions I ask, because I've got to have his input. I can't, well, this is the way it's going to be, and this is the way I am. That doesn't work. That does not work, and it will probably make it worse than that. So do you see that attachment? How can you get closer to your child and deal with, I use attachment issues because, Kitty, you also an adoptee. You can speak about what things that the child may have gone through.
Yeah. So actually, my birth son and I have talked about attachment styles, because it was him who said to me, "You got some anxious attachment going on there." And
Wow.
I was like, "What do you mean?" That he did not say this until after like the second year.
Okay.
During the first year, I demonstrated anxious attachment. I was like some sort of hovercraft. If I did not hear back from him through a text, I would really believe that that was instrumental on whether he was for me or against me. Like,
Mm,
I thought if he didn't respond to me, he is very upset that
wow.
I made this life changing decision on his behalf. So, and it just grew, and I was a hot mess during those times because I was like relinquishing all of my peace towards him to reassure me. And that's not right. No, there are other places to go with your unrest to hear others saying, how about an email once a week?
Ah,
That's a good idea. I
yeah.
could do that. Well, so I did. It was during a support group that somebody had said that to me because I came in like he's not responding to me, and I don't know
Or
what.
he doesn't respond as soon as I text him, and why is it taking so long? I mean, really,
Yeah.
it could be all of that.
Oh yeah, and you entertain all these ideas like, okay, I'm supposed to get the hint. He does not want me to text him multiple times a day. He
Right.
does not want to get a phone call from me. He does not want me in his life.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean by deceptive Klingons. That's
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't it was the second year when I think I brought up something that I was talking about with the families that I serve and support in my line of work. And I said to him, we teach this class called Reframing Parenting to adoptive parents to let them know you cannot use your parenting strategies that you were raised by or that you've raised other biological children by.
Mhm.
This is a whole different game for adoptees. You've got to throw those out the window and realize that there is a seed of abandonment
Mhm.
that has happened with me.
Right.
So they're like, really, why would they feel abandoned? We're reassuring them every day that they're having all their needs met. They've got such a better life. Like, we're equipped to give them everything we need. And I'm listening to these families going, oh my goodness, you misunderstand. You don't have a clue. You're acting as, well, this is what we have to offer, but you're never stepping over to say to your child, what are you dealing with? Like, what
Right.
are the secrets of your heart? I'm strong enough to hear, because you may say something to me where you say, I wish I could be with my real mommy.
Mhm.
I want to be able to be that person, because I'm also an adoptive parent, that I can say, yes, son, I
Mhm.
believe that when you make fried chicken, you talk about how your mother used to make it out on her back porch on a TV
Uh-huh.
tray.
Okay.
And those are fond memories. And you wish you could go back to those with your mom. Like, he says that. And I honor it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's so
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's accepting the other perspectives without your preconceived ideas. As you mentioned, is that I say we, I don't have any other children. So it's like this is my first connection as a child and dealing with what he may want. And a fact remains, I've heard this so many times, just because we may understand, or they may end up being mature enough when they grow old enough to understand the scenario on why they were placed for adoption, but it still does not take away that they were. So
Mm-hmm.
that seed of abandonment, as you talk about, that is still there on whether it's continuing to grow or not, or for them to see, yeah, I understand, and they may truly understand, but it's the fact that it happened, that is something you have to acknowledge and take responsibility for and be willing to talk about it. So, all of what you were talking about and sharing with your moms, Katie, I see that as you encouraging them to do their own work. You'll hear me say that all the time. Do your own work with therapy, with reading, support groups, and whatever, and grow and be able to be on your own path to be basically grow and grow and grow. And be careful on what you're around. When I say what are you around, there are a lot of different support groups, a lot of different things. And sometimes if you're really close, I don't say to the edge, but if you're close and easily reflected for what others may say, you've got to know for is what you need to know. You've got to know. You can inquire and so forth and see what others are doing, just like the suggestion you were given of sending an email once a week. Because otherwise, when you're there, well, I haven't gotten back. I texted this morning, I heard anything back today, or I sent an email or whatever. You will wear yourself out and run yourself crazy. You will be a baddie bouncing off the wall.
So
And
true.
the other side of it is that I like to see a split screen. It's like you got the mom over here just anxious and hyper, and then the child is like, everything's fine. You know, everything's fine. Have no idea that the mom is just whatever, because he's got his own, or he or she has their own perspective and whatever. And what helps me, Kitty, I think in terms of that, if I get upset or thinking, well, what about that? He hadn't done that. Well, how often does he have connection and build and be talking to his adopted mom? So why are we expecting? Oh, he's just gonna drop everything and just respond back this too. So I give my own self a reality check. you know, what is the likelihood that time, let's say, unless it's something emergency or whatever, that you text and so forth. And then we're in this new age of texting and electronic things with that, is that you may have an expectation that just isn't realistic.
Hmm.
And you
So
have to
true.
be right there. If it's not realistic, let's just say you're setting yourself up. You are
Yeah.
setting yourself up for frustration and failure and wearing yourself out. And then, as you say, your mind goes from this to this. Next thing you know, you send a text, and within 5 minutes, oh, he just don't want to meet me. He is sorry he met me. I'm never going to hear from him again, which of course we know is ludicrous.
I know. But when you're operating from such a void of hurt to begin with,
Yeah,
those feelings of what have I done?
yeah,
And is that always going to be brought into our relationship? What have I done?
right, right, right.
So it's really hard to get ahead of that until you get signs from your birth child that, oh, we're moving in a different direction.
Hmm.
And for me, it was when he said, what is up with these emails on Thursday? Every Thursday you send an email. What is this? And I said, well, I was kind of recapping the week just to share with you so I'm not just texting all the time. And he goes, no, 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 let's not do the emails. And I go, why not? And he goes, I want us to be able to be free to check in whenever. And I said, but you're not responding back. And that's when he said, you got the anxious attachment going on. And I have dismissive attachment. I have
Ah,
tried to attach after I placed. I mean, first of all, dismissive, like when you're in utero for 9 months and then all of a sudden you're passed to somebody totally different. Wouldn't that be dismissive? Because you're thinking, wait a minute, this is not comfortable to me. This is also different. Well, do
mhm.
I try to relax and settle into this? And then as you get older, you're finding out, in grade school, you see other parents doing things for their kids and you're like, ooh, this is not happening to me. Something,
Mm,
is it really safe for me to put out my feelings, to respond to a
right,
text, to invest in this relationship
right, right.
when historically it's been not good for me?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah,
that's where we got
yeah.
to.
And that's a reality. Let's just take adoption off the table for now, and let's just think about other relationships. Realistically, if we have this same kind of relationship with someone who's not their birth mom, adoptee, and whatever, we will be wary too. How much more investment I'm going to do in this friendship or this business relationship if I'm not hearing back? I take that same position because I'll be honest with you, 2022, I have like cut some business relationships. It's like they're looking for what they can get from me. I mean, and because that's like I'm still a person. We're all still people. So whatever the relationship, separate aside from adoption or whatever else, are we really? It is a quid pro quo or just response back? Why would I continue to call someone or email someone if I'm not getting back? Because I'm thinking, what's going on here? So it doesn't have to be in the adoption arena, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
That's
it's
just a personal
it's your
relationship.
relationship with me.
Yeah.
It was after some of the support groups that there was something said that we both sort of
Hmm.
had like a different feeling about,
Hmm.
that we would talk to each other to sort of sift it out and to figure out, wait, I guess we don't think that way. That would
Hmm.
not be what we would choose.
Hmm.
Um so we were able to find, sort of a like-mindedness.
Hmm.
And then that grew, those one-on-one conversations became like not just after a support group, but check in, how you feeling?
Yep.
And then when I was coming your way, you're like, well, we're going to meet each other
I
for
know.
real. And we did.
Yes, yes. And that's what I say needed, and it's so helpful. Because right, Kitty was saying she was coming in the Maryland area, and I was like, I was heading this place, I'm heading this place. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but we're
And
gonna
you
do
did it.
it. But
That was great.
we met up in person. But it's the same way when you're building a relationship with our children, or anyone else in the triad. It's like, okay, but we can't do that unless we say, okay, I can do this, I can do that, and this is comfortable with me. I mean, I think in terms of, and those of you know that I'm completely and transparent. Whenever I think about either my son or something I want to say or reach out, I think about it. I mean, I don't go off the deep end. I'm going to say what I'm feeling.
And I'm going to say it in a way, I don't you want to use the word diplomatic or whatever, but I'm not going to be in that closet and not be transparent because I want him to get to know me. Not what he can't know me if I'm hiding stuff. He can't,
Right.
so he's going to see. And some of the comments has been, well, will you really just speak up? Yes, I do. And just in situations in general. And so that's part of him knowing me for his and growing that, and me knowing him is observing. See, we've got to observe too, not just, oh, we're going to do this. We've got to observe. And one key thing you said your son said to you about that anxious attachment and so forth. We've got to receive what we hear,
Yeah.
or not just, oh, no, I'm not really. We've got to receive it. We have to receive it. Their way is like, really, okay, whatever I may think, that is what he's seeing, or a child is seeing. And we've got
Hmm.
to accept that, and really also be aware or cognizant of, okay, um, whatever pace is going, because we get some expectations, and you and I both know, Kitty, we've been on different support groups and so much anxiousness and whatever. But why not? Why not? Why not? I'm like, well, understand. You may not ever understand why not, why they don't do this, why don't do that. But just I say, be grateful for the fact that we're making pace. However slow you may perceive it to be, it could be very fast for the child because you don't know that perspective.
Yeah. And he had no clue that there was ever going to be a reunion for us.
Mhm,
So a lot of adoptees, especially with closed adoptions, that is something that they may have like put to rest,
mhm,
not believing that they would ever find. And who
mhm,
knows, even in time, an adoptee may think that I'm going to solidify myself in my new life so that if and when my birth parents find me, I'm going to be not really needing to invest.
mhm,
So that's a whole different angle that birth moms have to consider when they want to start a relationship.
mhm.
Because if
100%.
if the ad- if the adoptee is not wanting to invest, that doesn't mean that there's not a relationship. It just means
Absolutely.
it's going to look a little different.
That's it. That is it. And that's why, and you mentioned before of getting the different perspectives. That's why I've been listening to adoptee podcasts for years, Damon as well as Haley Radcliffe. I want to hear. There are some birth adoptive mom podcasts or articles or sessions or whatever, and I'll listen to that because I want to know that too. I want to be completely transparent with myself, but receiving of others because I don't know what shoes they sit in. I don't know. And I'm not trying to tell them what it is or this is how you feel or whatever. But just as you say, especially as in closed adoptions, the idea of reunion is sort of out of the question. And as you say, I've got to open myself up to maybe rejection again. They have no idea, but if they're realistic, they know, well, I don't know how this is going to work. And am I willing to open myself up to possible? See, when you say possibilities and the percentages, you just don't know because it varies just case by case. It varies case by case. What I always will say, and I'll stand back by this, I truly, truly believe that every birth mom truly does want to meet their child, but if they are so deep in that grief and trauma, have buried it, they just can't at that particular moment. Whether they ever will get over that, don't know. Don't know. Because those questions that I've gotten here on Birth Moms Real Talk, adoptees asking that question. When you ask birth moms what they couldn't, or their birth mom didn't want to meet with them, and they just didn't understand. And I say that because it's a lot of grief and trauma, and you have to acknowledge it as grief and trauma. Because if you think, oh, this doesn't matter, you're fooling yourself. It's going to come out. It's going to come out one way or another, and you're not going to be down the path of healing and growth. I'll put it that way. To heal and to grow, you've got to face it. You got to go through it to get through it.
Yeah. And
Okay.
being in a support group is the best place
Yeah.
to have that as a buffer zone.
Yeah.
So you're listening to other voices, voices of reassurance, voices
Mm-hmm.
of reality,
Mm-hmm.
um, even voices to say, I think you're being a little hard on yourself.
Yeah. 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 To hear that, as well as because you can receive it from others who are in your same position. It's hard for someone who's not placed a child to come and tell you you're being hard on yourself or whatever. As well as it's
Yeah.
a place of, and I use the word challenge. I said that to Kitty the other day. To be able to be challenged, to raise our level of faith, and that it isn't what we want it to be now, but let's look at where we are, or look at where you've been, where you've come from, and steadily stay on that path. And we're in this together. We're in this together. You hear me say that all the time, but I truly mean it. I truly mean it. Birth Moms Real Talk Village. I said we had a Zoom last week, and just an honest conversation. We want all of you birth moms out here. Please join the village. Our next meeting is actually February 28th. I think that's it. Okay. At 8 p.m. at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join the village. You can pay for it annually, semi-annual, or just monthly. We're doing the Birth Moms Real Talk tour, so we'll be in 4 different cities this year. Meeting in person because a lot of people have not met, in person. I hope to myself to be on some different retreats, so to meet a lot of you out there. I just love you all and support, and please just support us because, as you say, Kitty, this has been a hot thing for me, and my purpose of bringing this platform, and that's pretty much it's coming from me and the Birth Moms Real Talk Village. So those are our supporters. We want some more supporters. We need some more supporters from you. So send your comments. We have our Facebook for Birth Moms Real Talk, and then we have our Real Talk Village, which is a membership platform. Please put your questions, your posts. If you want to read Primal Womb with us, which we will be doing discussions and challenges. So I'm excited about that. And it's good to go through it, of course, read, but it's just better when you're with someone. Well, how did you perceive that? What do you perceive that? Just that discussion, it's amazing. It's amazing. Any last thoughts for today, Kitty? Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, well, I am so glad that as a member of the village that you supplied us with a journal
Yeah.
because that is something that is our fresh thoughts
Hmm.
down on paper. And then when we meet, we can pull that back up to be able to say, as I was reading Primal Wound, I came up with this, and this is
Yeah.
what was on my heart that day, and I'm struggling with this. Or even an awareness like I never thought about that. Wow, that really reassured me in this area.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I like that part too. So
Right.
I'm glad. I feel that that's a very intentional step to go
Hmm.
from listening to podcasts to then deciding to be a little vulnerable and to have a
Hmm.
give and take with other
Yeah.
people who have walked the same route you
Right.
have.
Right. We had a little bit of that last week. It
Mm,
really,
it was
yeah,
good.
it was touching. It was touching to it wasn't a challenge per se, but it was perspective. Exactly what you just said. Wow, and the whole thing of the freedom to just be very honest and share. It's a private group that we have, so not knocking other support groups. This is the I call was it 2.0. This is a 2.0 of support groups. With a support group, you're on a group, whether it's once a month, once a week, or whatever, but this takes it to a deeper level. The village takes it to a deeper level because we're your sisters who are right there in there, and we're gonna talk about more than just a check-in from last month about what happened. if
Yeah.
if something happened, it's like, how do you perceive it, how you dealing with it, whatever, and we're here to help. We're here to help. To me, that's the greatest thing, to know I've got a community that at any time, whether I call directly or I just post it on our private Facebook page, and then people can respond. So we've shown pictures and got to see our other children. We even had one of the other children show up. It was awesome. It was just so
Yeah.
awesome. So please join the Birth Moms Real Talk Village. Go on our website, birthmomsrealtalk.com. You can join there, send us comments. If you're interested in sharing your story, and got another, I think we're doing two more this next week. But if you want to share your story, please do go on the website and do share your story. You do not have to come out with your name if you choose to stay anonymous, but just share your story. As I say, the only time that you're coming out and showing your facial if you choose to join this Facebook page on Saturdays, which is public. Otherwise, sharing your podcast, you do not have to give your name or anything, but just share your story. So that's a way for you to just feel more comfortable, and sharing your story itself is getting out of your head and whatever. And the comments I hear most all the time, as soon as we finish the podcast and I stop recording, how do you feel? And it's mostly just a relief. Just a relief. That's amazing. That is amazing. But thank you for tuning in. You've been listening in to Birth Moms Real Talk live, the place for grace. We're talking about getting closer, whether you do your podcast, how you can grow, join our village so you really can just grow as a person. But separate aside from your child, you're a person, to be your best person, to live your best life. So we'll see you not next Saturday, but a week after. We got a new podcast who's coming out next Saturday. Make sure you tune into that as well as listen to Autumn's podcast. I didn't know the stories. I mean, the stories are coming out. The stories, as I keep saying, it's always different stories. Amazing. Thanks to you again, Katie, for that. So thanks for tuning in. This video will be on the Facebook Live for those of you that weren't live to tune in. Take care.